It's good to see you this morning. Beautiful morning here. I'm bringing the resources of philosophy and Philosophy 225, Quest for the Good Life, to topics of preservation. Against all odds, the Athenian hero Theseus brought his once doomed crew home on a sea vessel. According to Plutarch's Lives, the well-constructed vessel endured for centuries, and philosophers stood before the structure and asked each other whether replacing loose planks and rotted timbers over time created a new vessel or whether the original was preserved. In all likelihood, ancient Athenians valued preservation, but for them its nature remained uncertain. There is a second good reason for the uncertainty. On the approach to Athens, Theseus and crew failed to raise the sails, signaling success. Plutarch reports the father of Theseus, in despair for love of his son, leapt off a precipice. Fact or fiction, the story of Theseus is suggestive. No matter how well constructed, oversight and tragedy cast a doubt or a shadow onto his boat. Similarly, sincere, honest history today informs us some historical persons, events, and locations in New England are complicated by prejudice, exclusion, and unsolvable obscurities. To include all persons and to celebrate diversity, we should be like philosophers who ask each other good questions. When is something truly preserved? What is worthy of preservation? Near Salve Regina campus, near Salve Regina campus is a ship of Theseus. It was dry docked 300 years ago, and today it is protected and restored for the public as a memorial to the visit of George Berkeley, church servant and Irish philosopher in the year 1729. I mean the two-storied, red-painted farmhouse called Whitehall and located in the rural country of what today is Middletown. By construction and by the restoration efforts of organized citizens, building and museum are exemplary structures. Like the ship of Theseus, the farmhouse belonged to a hero who was on his way to what he hoped would be Athens. Like Theseus, the hero with crew got home in tragedy. Above all, I bring Whitehall Museum House to your attention. Find opportunity to visit 311 Berkeley Avenue, a 3-mile walk from campus, and there's a map on the prompt that went around the room. Also, I bring forth recluse Whitehall to sketch an alternate model of preservation. Among my authorities are two intellectuals who also lived in New England for tragically short durations, Henry Thoreau in the 19th century and Dr. Martin Luther King in the 20th. Both contribute insights for what I call story preservation. In 1854, Henry Thoreau observed New England citizens are busy constructing exemplary houses, barns, and public works, but they're not yet constructing themselves into exemplary persons in lives. A large and questionable generalization, I think. But Thoreau's insight is not. The latter, he claims, must be prior to the former. In short, put persons and lives first. Houses, barns, and public works carry what Thoreau calls life costs. In Thoreau are philosophical arguments objecting to the wish to preserve physical objects. Lift any exemplary physical object, claims Thoreau, and underneath you may find persons existentially trapped or morally asleep. For Thoreau, these are the factory worker, the plantation slave, and the Native American, but also property owners, investors, financial agents. In 18th century Ireland, George Berkeley had similar interests. A celebrity author of humorous dialogues questioning the reality of matter, Berkeley was convinced Britain had become immoral, and he wished to invest his gifts of faith and scholarly learning to found a college in service to the New World, including Native America and African America. With confidants, Berkeley dreamed of a new Athens planted in the archipelago of Bermuda. Berkeley drew together donors, he designed the campus, and he won sponsorship by the Crown. Within 5 years, Berkeley was weary of lobbying and anxious to sail. In October 1728, he departed Europe in secret with a new wife and associates who called themselves the Bermuda Group. There's a picture of the Bermuda Group on the bottom left of the sheet that shows some photographs. Against all odds, the dream collapsed. One explanation is the life cost of physical things, like houses and barns. Berkeley, young family, and servants were residing in Whitehall farmhouse when the dream collapsed. An engaging history is provided by Alice Brayton, author of George Berkeley in Newport and 20th century owner of Green Animals Topiary in Portsmouth. From Brayton, we learn of George Berkeley's efforts soon after arrival in the New World to purchase land in the Newport countryside. And we learn Berkeley bought 3 human slaves. According to Brayton, Berkeley with carpenters and slaves had Whitehall ready for occupancy by April 1729. A surprising accomplishment if your goal is to start a college in Bermuda. According to Brayton, the 100 acres purchased by Berkeley harbored orchards and pasture. Sources agree, Berkeley and crew started with an existing structure. The front house was made orderly and symmetrical with plentiful south-facing windows. The interior held a large dining room with traditional brick oven, parlor rooms, study, and at least 2 upstairs bedrooms. Underneath, a large basement where the slaves lived. For anyone thinking like Thoreau, financing and building spectacular farmhouses detracts from the commitment to loftier life goals like founding a learning community. In all likelihood, Berkeley's private actions aroused suspicion in London. Unknown to Berkeley, officials refused to forward promised monies to Newport for the purchase of Bermuda land. Berkeley realized this by winter of '31. The realization was accompanied by illness, miscarriage, and death in the young Berkeley family. The associates had relocated to Boston. While imprisoned, Dr. Martin Luther King edited a collection of sermons titled Strength to Love. In the sermon, Tough Mind and a Tender Heart, King offers a promising insight about good life. Some people assume good life bypasses change, that good life is constant and persisting, like the ship of Theseus. With reference to sacred scripture, King disagrees. Good life incorporates change and shows variation, like seasons of the year. For King, life emitting change pursues what he calls integration, what today we call diversity and inclusion. Preservation of exemplary physical things or objects is like the former. To preserve any physical object is to maintain its proximity to origins and to allow as little change as possible. If Dr. King is right, object preservation resists new direction and tragically excludes what may be essential. Just as life is not a persisting object, Whitehall is not constrained to its chief objects, the well-constructed building and its celebrity owner, who question the independent existence of physical reality. In truth, Berkeley's property acquisitions were empowered by persons in London. by associates who paid for the transatlantic voyage, to the former landowners here in Newport who had existing structures on the land, and to 3 slaves who perhaps continued to live there after his departure. Persons like Samuel Johnson, who journeyed to Whitehall, justified Berkeley's efforts. During his visit, Berkeley served as representative of Church of England, just when local churches desired leadership. Church of England is an essential part of Whitehall. Not Whitehall building as something physical and well constructed, but Whitehall's story. In short, an integrating preservation pursues the story and not so much the object. Philosophers may well inquire about the nature of this reality, whether physical or social or spiritual. Certainly, Whitehall's story is the diverse community of persons and organizations, some bound by affection and others by business contracts. Certainly, the story includes core activities of home, of farming and land stewardship, of meetings and gatherings, and scholarly study. Also characteristic are charitable acts by which persons like Samuel Johnson are incorporated into the story. Moreover, Whitehall undergoes transformation from farmhouse to inn and tavern, from inn and tavern to picnic site, from picnic site to colonial museum. In a 1724 letter to his friend, Berkeley wrote, "Let me also know where Bermuda Jones lives, or where he is to be met with." As the dream collapsed, Whitehall's story did not stop, despite the flickering shadow of tragedy. The story transforms. New plot and characters arrive. This is due to one of several acts of charity on the part of Berkeley and others. From London, Berkeley gives the farmhouse to Yale College, 100 miles from Newport, with a stipulation: income from the farm transfer to fund fellowships. Yale in turn leases Whitehall to local farmers, who in turn lease the building to innkeepers and tavern managers. Only after the building is neglected by farmers late in the 19th century and barnfowl race around its parlors do 3 citizens open a new chapter. Today, Whitehall is conducted by the Whitehall Committee of Colonial Dames of America, successors of the 3 citizens. Today, International Berkeley Society cooperates with Whitehall Committee to appoint summer residents from universities around the world. Activities of hosting, visiting, residing, studying, and gathering pursue story preservation. For Thoreau, people ought to be exemplary prior to houses and barns. Keeping relationships and forming affiliations make us exemplary. Inviting and hosting incorporates persons, bringing new direction and variation. According to King, good life incorporates and shows variation.